Gridiron Ring, a sports talk show covering football and professional wrestling. I'm your host, Encyclopedia Sports Cool Hand Luke 96, and welcome to my college football Week 3 predictions. I'm going to recap Week 2 here very shortly. But if you haven't done so already, be sure to like, follow, and subscribe to Gridiron Ring and myself, Cool Hand Luke 96, on social media. Links are actually in the description below, so go check Gridiron Ring and myself, Cool Hand Luke 96, out on social media. GridRing18, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Subscribe right here on YouTube. And follow myself, Cool Hand Luke 96, over on Twitter and Periscope. Week 2 in college football kicked off last Friday with Virginia and William & Mary. The Cavaliers defeated the Tribe by a score of 52-17. Really wasn't much of a game. Boise State and Marshall, though, out in Boise, Idaho on the blue turf. That was a very close game, and the Broncos ended up defeating the Marshall Thundering Herd 14-7. Big non-conference victory in the non-Power 5. Ohio State blanked the Cincinnati Bearcats 42-0 at home in Columbus at the Shoe in the Battle of the Buckeye State. Ohio also lost to Pitt in the Steel City this past weekend. Ohio State plays at Indiana. Pitt plays at Penn State this weekend. The Army Black Knights went to Ann Arbor, Michigan, almost upset the Michigan Wolverines, but however, Michigan won in double overtime by a score of 24-21. Maryland, they put up 60 plus for the second consecutive week to begin 2019 in the college football 150. Maryland 63-20 over a top 25 ranked Syracuse team. Maryland now ranked 21st in all of the land. Virginia Tech got revenge on Old Dominion 31-17 after the Monarchs defeated the Hokies last year at home. Mizzou over West Virginia 38-7. I'm very sorry to say, Mountaineer fans, it's going to be a very long season. Purdue over Vanderbilt 42-24 in a Big Ten SEC showdown. The defending national champion Clemson Tigers defeated the Aggies of Texas A&M at home in Death Valley 24-10 on Saturday afternoon. Ralphie defeated the Big Red Nebraska Cornhuskers 34-31, also at home in overtime. San Diego State over UCLA 23-14. UCLA now 0-2 and will more than likely be 0-3 after this upcoming weekend, as the Bruins will host the Sooners from Norman, Oklahoma. Central Florida and Florida Atlantic 48-14. Knights over the Owls. UCF will now host Stanford, who lost to USC 45-20. USC will play at BYU, who defeated Tennessee on Saturday as well. BYU, the Cougars over the Volunteers 29-26 in double overtime. A lot of overtime games, but more specifically double overtime games this past weekend in college football for some reason. A lot of exciting games this past weekend in college football for sure. Also in the NFL, be sure to keep an eye out for my NFL Week 2 predictions. Also WWE Clash of Champions as well. And be sure to tune in live on Periscope this weekend for more live reactions, play-by-play of college football, NFL, and WWE action. So BYU over Tennessee 29-26 in double overtime. Tennessee now 0-2 for the first time since 1988. Penn State over Buffalo 45-13. Buffalo actually led at halftime 10-7. However, Penn State scored 2 touchdowns in the first 5 minutes of the second half, and then the Nittany Lions rolled to victory over the Buffalo Bulls. The LSU Tigers went on the road and played the Texas Longhorns and defeated the Burnt Orange 45-38 on Saturday night from Darrell K. Royal Memorial Stadium in Austin, Texas. LSU then jumped both Oklahoma and Ohio State to jump to number 4 in the latest national AP poll in college football. So Tigers 45-38 winners over Texas. Oregon, they bounced back after a Week 1 loss in a neutral site game versus Auburn. Auburn sort of sleepy this past weekend over Tulane. However, they did pick up the victory as well. But Oregon put up 77 on Nevada, 77-6 your final from Eugene. The Spartans of Michigan State defeated the Western Michigan Broncos 51-17. Ole Miss defeated Arkansas 31-17 in SEC action. North Carolina over the Miami Hurricanes 28-25. The U now also 0-2 for the first time since 1978. Cal over Washington 20-19. That game actually didn't even get over until about 4 a.m. Eastern time here on the East Coast in the United States of America. Game didn't even start until about midnight, 1 o'clock due to a lightning delay. So that is the reason behind the late start and then the late finish in the Pac-12 with Cal and Washington. But the Golden Bears victors over the Washington Huskies 20-19. Justin Wilcox's defense, something to keep an eye out for as the season will move along. USC over Stanford as well in the Pac-12 45-20. And then Minnesota defeated Fresno State also in double overtime 38-35. As mentioned, USC plays at BYU and Stanford plays at Central Florida. Two low-key games this upcoming weekend, as this weekend doesn't have a whole lot of great games, but it does have a lot of good games, if that makes sense. Pitt and Penn State, 100th overall meeting between the Panthers and Nittany Lions. Battle of the Cy-Hawk Trophy with the Hawkeyes of Iowa and the Cyclones of Iowa State. Florida and Kentucky in the SEC. Clemson and Syracuse, though, will headline college football this upcoming weekend from the Carrier Dome in Syracuse, New York. That game will be at 7:30 Eastern Time Saturday night on ABC. College Game Day was planning on going to Syracuse for the first time ever, but after Clemson defeated Texas A&M, Syracuse lost to Maryland. College Game Day now will be in Ames, Iowa for the first time ever with Iowa State. Now coming up next, my college football week 3 predictions, but be sure to like, follow, and subscribe to Gridiron Ring and myself, Cohen Luke 96 on social media before you listen any further, and also Periscope this weekend. Be sure to tune in for my live reactions, play-by-play of college football, the NFL, and the WWE. The ACC will kick off week 3 on Friday the 13th with the Tar Heels of North Carolina and the Demon Deacons of Wake Forest. Both teams 2-0, but Mac Brown's North Carolina Tar Heels will get the job done at 6 o'clock on Friday night, Friday the 13th, to kick off week 3. So I'm taking UNC over Wake Forest. Kansas Boston College from Chestnut Hill. A.J. Dillon's going to run all over the Jayhawk defense Friday night at 7:30. This game is going to be on the ACC network. The first and the next game, the third of 3 games on Friday night, are on ESPN. Kansas BC on the ACC network. This game was actually supposed to be on Saturday, but just within the past couple months they moved this game to a Friday night. I don't know why, but Kansas Boston College also on Friday night. I know Les Miles is a damn good coach. It's going to be a while before he gets Kansas back on, if he ever does. Big non-conference game for Kansas, Big 12 ACC, but Boston College playing at home. A.J. Dillon, probably 100, 150 yards, if not more, on the ground. I expect from him on Friday night to lead the BC Eagles to victory over Kansas. Washington State, Houston. This game very well could be the highest scoring game of the weekend and on the year so far. Mike Leach versus Dana Holgorsen, both great offensive-minded coaches. Houston, they went on the road week 1 and almost defeated Oklahoma, except it was just a little too late. They ended up losing 49-31, I do believe, if I'm not mistaken. I'll have to check on that. But Washington State, obviously, new quarterback for them, losing Gardner Minshew. They've still been able to put up points, though, this season. Mike Leach's air raid offense versus Dana Holgorsen's now Houston Cougar air raid offense should be an exciting game on Friday night. This is actually at a neutral site, but it's still basically a home game for Houston because it's in Houston, Texas at NRG Stadium, home of the Houston Texans in the National Football League. Washington State, they'll come on the road, pick up the win though. Friday night, I believe this game's at 9:15. It's a weird kick time. I know North Carolina Wake Forest is at 6. Normally, early Friday games will be at 7. Kansas Boston College at 7:30 though on the ACC network. And then Washington State Houston will be on after UNC Wake Forest regardless. But like I said, I believe it's like a 9:15, 9:30 kick. A little weird start time for the Cougars of Washington State and the Cougars of Houston. So give me the Cougs, but give me the Cougs from Pullman, Washington, and the Mike Leach-led Washington State Cougars. The 100th and potentially final meeting between Pitt and Penn State on Saturday at noon on ABC from Beaver Stadium right here in Happy Valley, as the Panthers of Pittsburgh will come up to Central Pennsylvania from the Steel City and play Penn State. As I said, could potentially be the final meeting between the two schools for a very, very long time, as there is no scheduled matchup after Saturday. This will be the final game of the latest 4-game set from 2016 to 2019. Penn State with a 2-1 series lead, 2-1, 2 wins the past 2 years, as Pitt won in 2016 after taking a 16-year hiatus in the series. Hopefully Pitt does not win, because I don't want to have to listen to Pitt fans saying, oh, the last time Pitt and Penn State played, Pitt won, because in 2000, that's what happened. And then they didn't meet again until 2016. Pitt won once again. It was 17 years before Penn State defeated Pitt. So it should be a damn good game on Saturday. A lot of Penn State fans, and I'm a Penn State fan if you did not know, a lot of Penn State fans are probably expecting a blowout, because Pitt really hasn't been Pitt football in a very, very long time. Last year, Penn State went down to Heinz Field, put up 51, a game that I was actually at, and, hell yeah, it was a damn good experience seeing a ass-kicking of Penn State over Pitt. I was actually at the game 2 years ago as well, when Penn State won. But I think come Saturday, it's going to be a lot closer than what the experts think. Penn State currently a 16.5 point favorite, as they moved up from 15 to 13 as well in the latest top 25 poll. Noon kick, it's a stripe out. Fans should be in it. It's a rivalry game. It's a Keystone Classic, since they renamed it, since it really didn't even have a name for the rivalry back in the day. This is Pitt's Super Bowl. I'm sorry to say, Pitt fans, but it is. And for Penn State anymore, it's just been another game. Pitt's going to come to play. I know damn well they are. Narduzzi's going to have his boys, his guys, ready to play. Pitt's going to come out flying. Penn State's probably going to have to come back and win like they did last week against Buffalo. They were down 10-7, 2 touchdowns in the first 5 minutes of the second half. I could see something like that once again. Very, very close, but because of home field, Penn State will win in the 100th overall meeting between Pitt and Penn State on Saturday. Let me know, Pitt fans, Penn State fans as well. This is a huge rivalry for the state of Pennsylvania. It is, whether you agree with that or not. But like I said, this is Pitt's Super Bowl. And Pitt football hasn't been good in quite some time. This year, struggling early. They lost to Virginia in the ACC week 1. Almost lost to Ohio out of the MAC last week as well. Penn State put up 79 on Idaho, 45 on Buffalo last week. We'll obviously see what happens. That's why they play the games. Should be a very, very fun, exciting game to watch and to be at. So, H to P. Hail to Penn State. We are Penn State. Eat shit, Pitt. Shit on Pitt. Penn State will win a very, very close game over Pitt on Saturday. Ohio State at Indiana in the Big Ten. Indiana could very well be without their quarterback, but either way, if he plays or not, Ohio State's going to win this ball game. Yeah, 2 years ago, Ohio State kicked off 2017 at Indiana. Third game of the year now in 2019 on the road. Close call a couple years ago. They blew them out though in the second half. Expect something similar. Justin Fields and the Ohio State offense, after a Week 1 win over Florida Atlantic, a game that came out guns a-blazing, and then in the second half they really just died down. Still picked up the win, but then this past week they blew out Cincinnati at home, shut them out 42-0. Ohio State, probably 4, 5, 6 touchdown win over Indiana on Saturday. However, I know last week, like I said, between the Ohio State-Cincinnati game and Michigan-Army, I thought Ohio State-Cincinnati was going to be a lot closer. That'd be the upset alert. However, the Buckeyes blew out the Bearcats, and then it was Army taking Michigan to double overtime and almost defeating the Wolverines in the Big House. So, Ohio State, like I said, came out strong first half Week 1, died down in the second half, and then they came out last week, put up 42, shut out Cincinnati. Now go on the road for the first time with Ryan Day as the permanent head coach at Ohio State. Could they struggle early? Yeah. Indiana, though, like I said, probably going to be without their quarterback. Ohio State, Chase Young on the defense, he'll get after Indiana along with everybody else, and Ohio State's going to pick up a huge win over the Hoosiers Saturday at noon for big noon kickoff on Fox. Maryland at Temple. The Terps, 79 Week 1, 63 last week over a top 25 ranked Syracuse team who now hosts Clemson Saturday Night Football, 7:30 on ABC. Maryland at Temple. The Terps are going to defeat the Owls. Speed things up here now. Kansas State and Mississippi State. Bulldogs defeated the Wildcats last year from the Little Apple in Manhattan, Kansas, in what ended up being Coach Bill Snyder's final season as the K-State head coach. Chris Kleiman takes over for Kansas State, leaving North Dakota State to come to Manhattan. Now they got to go to Mississippi State now on Saturday. The Bulldogs could be without Tommy Stevens, the transfer from Penn State at quarterback. Got injured last week. We'll have to see if he plays on Saturday. But either way, Mississippi State playing at home against a young and inexperienced Kansas State team. Give me the Bulldogs over the Wildcats. Plus, a dog is better than a cat in the end anyways. So, Mississippi State over Kansas State. NC State, West Virginia will finally get to play. Their game last year in Charlotte was actually canceled due to one of the hurricanes that hit the Carolinas in the middle of September. However, NC State, the Wolfpack, will now travel to Motown, West Virginia to play the Mountaineers. West Virginia last week, I know they lost, got blown out by Missouri on the road in a Big 12 SEC showdown. Now an ACC Big 12 showdown from Milan Puskar. And I'm going to pick West Virginia one more time. And if they lose, I'm never picking them again. You can mark my words on that, at least for this season. Because like I said, I know Neil Brown's in his first year as head coach, taking over for Dana Holgorsen, who left to go to Houston. They play Washington State, as I mentioned earlier. Neil Brown leaving Troy to come to West Virginia. I know, like I said, it's going to be a long season probably for WVU, but you got to win at least one game, okay? And I know they're 1-1, but they almost lost to James Madison Week 1. They shouldn't even won that game, but yet they did because obviously JMU is an FCS school. But JMU is obviously still clearly one of the best FCS schools. So that's why they had trouble with them. Austin Kendall, transfer quarterback from Oklahoma, a reliable quarterback. I don't know if he's Will Grier by any means, who's with the Carolina Panthers now in the NFL, backing up Cam Newton, but we'll see what happens. But give me WVU over NC State on Saturday. Air Force, Colorado. I'm going to take the Falcons of Air Force. Colorado, big win last week over Nebraska at home in overtime. I think they could come out sleeping on Saturday. Give me Air Force over Colorado. Notre Dame, I think, will blow out New Mexico from South Bend, Indiana. Alabama, they'll eventually win over South Carolina. They have gone to Columbia, South Carolina, though, before and lost during a 3:30 kick on CBS. whenever Alabama was ranked in the top 5 in all the land. South Carolina didn't look bad last week, but South Carolina football is just not good. Okay? Plain and simple. They're towards the bottom of the SEC, even though people put them out to be in the middle of the pack or even towards the top for some games. After some games, it'll be close early. Alabama, obviously, with Duke week 1, it was 10-3, 14-3 at halftime, something like that, as Tim McGraw would say. But then Alabama in the second half just blew out the Blue Devils. Expect something like that. It'll be close early. Come the second half, Alabama and Tua Tagovailoa, they'll roll to victory. So roll Tide roll, Crimson Tide over the Gamecocks of South Carolina. Stanford at Central Florida, a very, very low-key, great non-conference showdown during Week 3 of college football this weekend. Stanford, though, unranked after losing to USC on the road without KJ Costello at quarterback. Central Florida 2-0. Brandon Wimbush at quarterback, the Notre Dame transfer. Stanford coming the whole way across country. Normally I would pick Stanford. I went back and forth on this. Normally I would pick Stanford, but without Costello, I picked them last week. They looked like shit against USC, especially in the second half, and lost. I got to take the Knights of Central Florida over the Stanford Cardinal. Speaking of USC, they go to Provo, Utah to play BYU on Saturday afternoon as well. BYU coming off a huge win on the road in double overtime over the Tennessee Volunteers last weekend. USC now 2-0 as well after defeating Fresno State, even after losing JT Daniels for the year with a torn ACL, and then defeating Stanford last week. 2 games I thought they were both going to lose, but however they won both of them. 2-0 now go to BYU. But BYU, big win. They'll keep the momentum going. Cougars over the Trojans in an upset on Saturday. Arizona State, Michigan State. ASU actually won over Sparty last year at home. Won a close one late. However, now the Sun Devils have to go to East Lansing. 4 o'clock kick on Saturday from Spartan Stadium. Mark D'Antonio against Herm Edwards should be a very, very good game, but the Go Green, Go White Michigan State Spartans will defeat the Arizona State Sun Devils. Battle of the Cy-Hawk Trophy, Iowa State. Hawkeyes out of the Big Ten will defeat the Cyclones of Iowa State out of the Big 12. Iowa State had trouble with Northern Iowa week 1. That game went to triple overtime. They still found a way to win. But now you got Iowa coming to town. Rivalry game, college game day on site. First time ever in Ames, Iowa. They're going to be pumped up, but Iowa, the better team, Iowa's going to win on Saturday. Colorado State, Arkansas, Woo Pig. Louisville, Western Kentucky, give me Scott Satterfield's Louisville Cardinal. They looked good week 1 against Notre Dame early, and then obviously the Fighting Irish just blew them out in the second half. Future is very, very bright for Louisville. Obviously, don't take Western Kentucky light. This is the Bobby Petrino Bowl. He's coached both teams. Coached Louisville, went to Arkansas, got fired, went to Western Kentucky, went back to Louisville, got fired once again after last year. So that's how Satterfield got the job at the end of last season after being at his alma mater, App State, for the past 6 years. Finally left Boone, North Carolina to come to Louisville. Now they go to Western Kentucky. I think they'll win on Saturday. La Tech, Louisiana Tech Bulldogs at Bowling Green. Bowling Green 52-0 loss against Kansas State last week. Louisiana Tech got blown out on the road against Texas. Very low-key non-conference matchup, in my opinion, this weekend as well with these two schools. Louisiana Tech, though, I think will come out on top in a close game. Florida, Kentucky, SEC East showdown. Florida on the road. This game will surprise a lot of people. Everybody's going to be talking about this, I think, after Saturday. If Florida wins, if they can beat Georgia, are they going to be the favorite then in the SEC East? Probably, because there's no one else hardly. Kentucky, big year last year with Mark Stoops, went to the Citrus Bowl, defeated Penn State out of the Big Ten. Kentucky had trouble early with Toledo. Now they host Florida. We'll see what happens. Give me the Gators, though, over the Wildcats. Clemson, Syracuse. Syracuse is going to be ready to play this week, unlike last week on the road at Maryland. But now you got Clemson coming to town. Trevor Lawrence and company. Yeah, 2 years ago they lost at the Carrier Dome. However, I do think they dropped the name Carrier. I think it's just now called the Dome. If I'm not mistaken, I'll have to check on that. Or if you guys know, let me know in the comments below. But, yeah, Clemson lost 2 years ago to Syracuse on the road on a Friday night. And then last year, Syracuse almost beat Clemson on their home turf in Death Valley, Clemson, South Carolina. But Clemson pulled away and ended up winning. Clemson will do the same thing on Saturday and will remain the number one team in the country. Hawaii, Washington. Washington will bounce back after a 1-point loss to Cal last Saturday night. Florida State, Virginia. Wahoos over the Tomahawk Chop. Florida State, they should be 0-2. They're 1-1. Lost to Boise State. They should have lost to Louisiana Monroe last week. Kicker missed a game-tying extra point in overtime, and Florida State won 45-44. However, Virginia, Bronco Mendenhall, if he has a damn good year in Charlottesville, keep an eye out for him to get a bigger and better job, potentially, if he would want to leave. He was at BYU forever, and then when he left to go to Virginia, that was a big deal. And then now he's finally having success. Virginia will defeat Florida State at home from Scott Stadium in Charlottesville, Virginia. TCU, Purdue, another very, very good non-conference game this weekend. TCU, for the second straight year during Week 3, playing a Big Ten team. However, last year they played Ohio State in Arlington, basically a home game for them. Now they have to go to West Lafayette, Indiana, to play the Purdue Boilermakers, who defeated Vanderbilt last week out of the SEC. Purdue lost Week 1, yeah I know, on a game-winning 58-yard field goal to Nevada, and then a win over Vanderbilt. They should be 2-0. Should be 3-0 after this weekend, because I think Purdue's going to defeat TCU, but obviously at that point they'd be 2-1 because they lost to Nevada. TCU, Gary Patterson, damn good coach. This game will be close, 7:30 on Big Ten Network, I do believe. But Purdue, playing at home, Jeff Brom, former Louisville XFL quarterback, and also Western Kentucky head football coach. Purdue will pick up the win over the Horned Frogs. Oklahoma, UCLA, talk about records. UCLA 0-2, they lost to Cincinnati Week 1. Really shot themselves in the foot with turnovers 2 weeks ago now. And then also last week lost to San Diego State. Now you got Jalen Hurts and Oklahoma coming to town out at the Rose Bowl in Pasadena. I would really like to pick UCLA in this game. I really would. But however, Oklahoma's just too damn good. I don't know how or when UCLA is going to start playing football. Last year they went, 3-9, 4-8, whatever it was. Chip Kelly, it's taken him a little longer than expected to get things rolling in Pasadena, unlike he did in Eugene with Oregon, and then going to the NFL where he didn't have success whatsoever, which obviously led to his firings both in Philadelphia and San Francisco before working for ESPN, and then now with UCLA in year 2. But Jalen Hurts, 6 touchdowns against Oklahoma Week 1. Oklahoma big win last week as well, put up 60 plus. Now they go on the road at UCLA. Oklahoma's going to win. And this game will probably not even be close, to be honest with you. I would like a close game. This is 8 o'clock on Fox Saturday night, but unfortunately Oklahoma in a blowout over UCLA. Hopefully eventually UCLA can get back on top with Chip Kelly and company. And I mean, like I said, I would love to pick UCLA in this game, but I just can't. I can't pick against Oklahoma. Jalen Hurts and Lincoln Riley. Riley, talk about coaching search or coaching candidates for another job. If he wants to go to the NFL, he's going to be going to the NFL. Somebody's going to pay him a shit ton more money, and he's going to be coaching on Sundays probably next year. But we'll have to find out and see how, obviously, the rest of this year shakes out, and then so on and so forth. But Oklahoma over UCLA Saturday night. Texas will bounce back after losing to LSU at home. They play at Rice also Saturday night at 8 o'clock. So hook 'em, Give me the Texas Longhorns over Rice. Nebraska, they'll also bounce back after losing to Colorado. They host the Huskies of Northern Illinois. And then Arizona, I think, will defeat Texas Tech. However, with this game being a 10:30 kick on Saturday night on ESPN, these 10:30 games, the past couple weeks for myself, haven't gone the way I obviously would have wanted them to. They've been close up until the end, and then we get a swerve, and then the team I didn't pick ends up winning. So Arizona, though, playing at home. Kevin Sumlin, week 0, a couple weeks back now, they went on the road, almost defeated the Rainbow Warriors of Hawaii, lost 45-38. But Arizona over the Red Raiders of Texas Tech. Kevin Sumlin with a big early season non-conference win that could potentially save his job if the Wildcats do in fact have a bad season this year. So those are my week 3 college football predictions. Also, be sure to go check out my NFL week 2 predictions, WWE Clash of Champions predictions as well. Thanks for listening. Like, follow, and subscribe to Gridiron Ring and myself, Cool Hand Luke 96 on social media. And I hope to see everybody now this weekend over on Periscope, Cool Hand Luke 96, for live reactions, play-by-play of WWE plus college football and also the NFL.